Welcome to episode 80 of the Broadway Shuffle. Tonight on the Broadway Shuffle, it is just Zyler and myself. I'm Conrad. We're missing Brennan and Clayton tonight. Brennan and Clayton both have good excuses, though. They were excused absences. And so I want to thank you for joining the show. If this is your first time listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button or give us a follow on Apple and Spotify. And I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Isaac Williams, who was our 1,200th subscriber today. So we've just ticked off the subscribers one by one. I don't know what the future holds for us. Zyler, I don't know how many subscribers. We're shocked we're even at this point, but I think it's a testament to our enjoyment of the show and how excited we are for what the Broadway Shuffle is and what it can become.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Oddly enough, if we're shouting out people, I met a fellow sub at a wedding this past weekend in Santa Fe. Leah Stuckey, I met your daughter, and she was a great time. Me, Clayton, and Brennan all had fun. I have a picture, but I won't share it. We were enjoying our beverages, and the picture didn't turn out quite as well as I was hoping. But yeah, it was a fun time. We enjoyed the wedding in Santa Fe, and excited to talk some tech sports today. Lots of stuff happening right now.
I think the biggest thing that we need to maybe talk about just for a second is that Clayton is now a married man.
That's a great
and he's
point.
on his honeymoon. I mean, that's a great thing. We'll have to get all the updates from him next week. I'm not sure when he's going to be back, but he's going to be enjoying his wedding and excited for him. I'm just bummed I wasn't able to make it, but other obligations prohibited me from joining everybody and celebrating. But I was celebrating in my heart, Clayton. So if you're listening, which I know you probably aren't, we're excited for you and couldn't be happier for you and Abby. So. But like I said, tonight on the Broadway Shuffle, it's just Zyler and myself. We have a lot to talk about. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world of Texas Tech sports. It is mid-May, but at the same time, football season's just around the corner. You've got softball doing their thing. Zyler, where do you want to start tonight? We could talk about so many different things.
Yeah, I texted you guys. I said, "What do you want to talk about today?" And I was like, kind of a week slate. And then I started listing all these things, and we really got a ton. We can talk about softball making it to the super regional. It'll be our second time talking about softball on the pod, so maybe we won't spend a ton of time there. But three things I want to talk at least at some point tonight. Darrion Williams withdraws his name from the NBA draft. He's down to NC State and Kansas, both super interesting options. ESPN put out an article with Morton in their tier 3 of college quarterbacks coming back next season. We can maybe get into that a little bit, whether we think he's too high or do we think he's too low. And then McCaslin, obviously this is a huge deal for me. If you're following along on Twitter, every single win I was tweeting #extend McCaslin. He gets the 6-year extension till 2031. We'll get into that a little bit later. Conrad, something that I'm thinking about right now, though, the Tech spring sports, man, one of the best seasons they've probably ever had. If you exclude baseball, you've got, women's tennis that, won a Big 12 title. You had softball win their first ever Big 12 championship, both regular season, and they're going to the super regional. Tech track swept the Big 12 championships, both in outdoor in the men's and the women's. Texas Tech's just having a really good spring sports session. If you exclude the men's baseball team and the golf, they're going to the national championship too. They're one of 30 teams heading there. So lots of success in the Tech athletic department right now. Do you think that puts any extra pressure on Joey? Do you think he feels anything from that, or is that kind of just outside noise?
Well, I think when all of the athletic department is doing well, it's a good thing for your school, right? I just think, and looking at especially like golf programs, softball this year, and track. I mean, Texas Tech has a fantastic athletic department, top to bottom. I mean, I think we often get overshadowed by other schools because we haven't had the football success that other schools have had. But if you look at all the other sports, you've got one of the best athletic programs in the country. I know we devote most of our time here on the Broadway Shuffle to football and basketball, and rightfully so. That's what the people want to hear. But we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge all these other sports and how they're. I mean, quite frankly, track and softball, like they're dominating. I mean, these are dominant sports with obviously Coach Kitley and Coach Glasgow that have done a fantastic job with these respective sports, and so it's worth acknowledging and worth giving congratulations out to them because they're representing Texas Tech so well, and we couldn't be happier for them. But back to your question about Joey, I don't know if that
sports success and how does it relate to football. That's the perfect Texas Tech.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, man. We're all about football. It's May, but we're all about football. Yeah, it's interesting thinking about it that way. I don't know that necessarily. I don't think really, in my opinion, I don't think it adds anything extra, because I just think football, and everyone understands how difficult it is to win in football and how different it is to win in football than the other sports. I'm not trying to downplay the success of the other sports. I'm just saying football and basketball really are in their own category, and so I think all the other things that have played a part in the pressure that Joey and company will feel this year are probably more substantial in the pressure cooker than all this other sports success. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I think Joey's added enough pressure already. You know, what you did in
Yeah.
the offseason is going to add plenty. I think the thing that encourages me is that institutionally, I think your athletic departments are set up well to succeed, and you're seeing that in other areas. It's not that we can't win in anything. Why do we expect to win in football? It's we are winning in pretty much everything else. We should be winning in football too. I think we have reasonable expectations as Tech fans, but you know, I just think I think that speaks well to Skuvenek and what Hokut are doing. And I know Hokut gets his fair share of grief, but you know, for my money, you've been super fortunate to have him and have him stewarding your athletic department this past 10 years. So, you know, I think it bodes well. I think, you know, if we can transition a little bit, you know, just the general landscape of college athletics is so tricky. And when you think about how hard it is to win at so many of these different sports, I look at a guy like Darrion Williams, who has been with your program 2 years, a guy that really blossomed in your program. You didn't identify him out of high school, but you got him after his freshman year. And now he withdraws from the portal or withdraws from the NBA draft. And it's not even in between Texas Tech, Kansas, and NC State. It's Kansas and NC State. And you know, I don't know how you feel about this. I love Darrion as a player. I thought he was a great asset. Thought he was a great player. Seemed like he was a good teammate. Man, I really hope he goes to NC State. That's the thing that I look at right now is I don't want to have to play against him. I don't want Darrion to have to come into the United Spirit Arena wearing a color other than red and black. That would really bother me. I hope NC State finds a way to pull him. I think I could root for him, go to Carolina, kind of get out of sight, out of mind. If he's in Lawrence, that's really going to bother me. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm to be honest, I'm not surprised that he withdrew from the NBA draft. I didn't really see him as an NBA player right now. I thought, you know, if you've got another year, come back, develop more. I mean, he can create his own shot. So he's a good player. I'm not trying to slight Darrion. I mean, he had some huge games for us this year and last year. Always will be remembered. I think fondly for what he did in a Texas Tech uniform. I will say I'm just bummed at like why. Now I get if Grant and staff did not want to wait around for a decision, right? You have to move on and build your team and build your roster. And
Absolutely.
I think we've done a fantastic job of that. So that does not make me upset or annoyed or anything. I think, you know, you've built obviously the top end and Christian coming back and then the other pieces that you've added. I think our roster's fine. It just it'd be tough. I mean, I think obviously the prime example for Tech fans is Coach Beard leaving and coming back and how hostile that environment was. But even before that, you know, Baker leaving and coming back, even though Baker didn't mean necessarily even close to your football program compared to what Beard meant to your basketball program. But yeah, I don't think there'll be that type of vile spirit towards Darrion if he came back. I just think it would. I mean, how could it not tarnish your view of him if he goes and plays for Kansas, especially after Kevin McCullough did the same thing? You know, so it's like
that was going to be my follow-up. Is it worse than the Kevin McCullough situation? Is it better? You know,
it has to be worse because Darrion was better in red and black than Kevin ever was.
I know. Right? So, you know, Kevin had the weird stuff with Mark Adams, so it kind of gave him a reason out. But then he went to Kansas. It felt weird. I felt like you kind of wanted him back, but you didn't get him back. I don't know. That was just a weird one, and I felt that one left a sour taste in my mouth. I don't really feel like I have a sour taste in my mouth with Darrion. Like he did some great stuff for you in March. Kevin really never did anything for you in the tournament. And I know that's not what it's all about, but I mean, you made the Sweet 16 run, which I guess Darrion won you one extra game against Arkansas. Does that really change my opinion of a player if he does go the Kevin McCullough route and go to Lawrence? You know, I don't know, and maybe it'll change as things go on, but I felt much more vitriol toward McCullough. And maybe it's because we got him out of high school. You know, this will be Darrion's third school. I don't know. I can't decide where I'm at. I really hope he goes to NC State. I do know that.
Yeah, I just don't really. I hope he goes to NC State, so we don't even have to have this conversation. Because if it is, it's like, well, he probably got paid very well to go there. Paid better than he was going to get paid here. Because obviously, I think not that he was a huge part of your roster, right? But I don't know what his price tag was. But I think it was obvious that you chose to invest your funds elsewhere. Specifically, you got JT Toppin. and then
if
in
you want to
Christian
talk,
Anderson.
you got your replacement for Darrion in Lawan Watts, a guy that's a better defender, taller, more athletic. I'm not going to say he's a better player than Darrion. He has not been as good of a player as Darrion. But when Darrion announced that he was going to the draft, you went out and immediately got this guy. And I mean, I think you kind of recruited over his spot. I don't think you could take him back even if you wanted to. You don't have a need for another, 6'4", like small forward. That's not really a spot on your roster. So
you're right. I mean, but the thing is too, what would, at this point, I'm not saying you can't. I think we've seen that Texas Tech can go out and get the money, right? I don't think the money is, I don't think the money is the conversation, but I think you do have to sit down at some point and ask the question, what's worth the investment? What's worth, like, would it really be worth the $1.5 to $2 million? I'm assuming that he might cost maybe more than that when you've got a guy that's pretty serviceable. I mean, these are the questions you're asking now in college athletics. And so I think you have to ask that. And obviously you don't have a spot, but even if you did, I don't know that the return would be there on what you'd have to pay to get him.
Yeah, and then there's obviously another element. We don't know what the conversations were like between him and the staff, him and McCaslin, were their bridges burned? Like, there's all the rumors about his demands for playing. We're not going to get into that. We don't have any reporting on that. The only thing I know about that's what everybody else does, and that's what you see on Twitter. I just don't know. It's, I miss, and I'm going to sound like a grumpy old man, but I miss the days where you got to see the guys grow up on your roster. And I know that we did the exact same thing to Nevada. We took Darrion from them. So I guess I'm a little bit tongue in cheek there, but I don't know. It's just you invest all this time. You love this guy. You learn about them as a player and as a person, and then they're gone. And I don't know. There's nothing I'm going to say here that's going to change that. I guess I really don't want to root against Darian Williams. I think I liked him as a person. He seemed like he was fun as a teammate. And that would be weird to root against him in a Kansas jersey. So, and another odd thing, you look at Kansas's roster right now on paper, they're maybe not even top 5 in the Big 12. I think BYU would have a better roster on paper. Baylor probably has a better roster on paper. Houston has a better roster. You potentially
Texas
have a better
Tech.
roster. Like, there's plenty, and that's so odd to think about Kansas not being the clear-cut favorite in basketball. And I know basketball is a long way away. They won't tip off till November, but it's just so interesting to see what Bill Self has not become, but what's kind of happened to that program. And they haven't gone bad, but I don't know. It's just interesting.
Well, again, Zyler, it's what we mentioned last episode. When everybody else started being able to play players, Bill Self and Nick Saban, they just weren't the same anymore.
Yeah. And
I mean, truly, I think you have to take that into consideration. Sure. Like, I really do.
And I say this as Kansas has the number one kid in the class, Darren Peterson, that's coming in. Like, they're going to be talented. They're going to be good. I'm not saying Kansas is going to be bad. But, the years of Kansas, I think they won 7 or 8 Big 12 titles in a row. Like, it's been that feels like ancient history at this point. And so it's just weird to see Darrion go to a program like that. Now, granted, the games that Darrion's played against Kansas, he had that perfect game in Lubbock 2 seasons ago, and then he went absolutely crazy in Lawrence this season. So, Bill Self probably thinks he's getting a future NBA All-Star if he's just seen those 2 games. But I don't know. That's one that's going to play out probably in the next couple days, and so just keep an eye on that. Another thing when we look at national stuff that's coming out in national landscapes, ESPN put out their tier ranking of all the quarterback rooms in the country right now, and the guys that they had up at the top, they only had 5 rooms, all of them in the Big 12, Big 10, and SEC. They had Clemson with Klubnik, LSU with Garrett Nussmeier, Oklahoma John Mateer, Penn State with Drew Allar, and then South Carolina with Lenora Sellers. That all makes sense. Tier 1B was DJ Lagway, Carson Beck, Arch Manning. Tier 2 was Sam Levitt, Sawyer Robertson, Haynes King, and Rocco. So there's your 3 Big 12 guys. And then you get into the Tier 3 players, which was the buckle up. These are 19 players. And, I actually thought there was some, credit given to Morton here. I don't always think of him being in this class, but, you had guys like Taylon Green, a guy that you saw at Arkansas in the bowl game, Jalen Daniels, maybe, Miller Moss at Louisville, Blake Horvath, the Abernathy native out at Navy, Kevin Jennings at SMU, Josh Hoover, then Baron Morton and Diego Pavia. Conrad, your thoughts seeing Baron in that tier, too high, too low, just right? I know we're biased for Baron. I love Baron. What were your thoughts seeing him here on this ESPN article?
Are they ranking you always have to ask the question when you're looking at lists like this, what are the metrics that they're using, right? Are they ranking them based on what think they're going to be this season or what they've been? Did they specify that in the article? I saw the list. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't see how they rated them.
It's every QB situation in the country. So, what does your room look like? So not necessarily how talented is your starter, how good is your starter, but it's really the QB in general, not necessarily the scheme, not necessarily the offense. What are your receivers like? If you just evaluated, the two quarterbacks on your depth chart, or the three, sometimes they listed them, how good should each of these teams feel about their QB rooms this season? Not necessarily going forward, because, if you're Iowa State. After Rocco leaves, you're probably not feeling that great. You're maybe not in tier 2, but this season you probably feel pretty good about that if you have Rocco. Oddly enough, they put Texas Tech, Baron Morton, and Mitch Griffiths. I don't know that Mitch is going to be your QB2. That's going to be Will Hammond. So maybe that discredits the guy here a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're okay, so if you're telling me it's the whole QB room and I get to put Will Hammond and Baron Morton side by side and talk about those two guys together, that's a tier 2 room to me. That's for sure a tier 2 room. That's more impressive to me than Rocco Becht, whoever they have, and Sam Levitt and whoever they have. I mean, I think everybody in the conference should know who Will Hammond is at this point, especially with how high Texas Tech is on him and how good of a game he played, or good of a half he played against TCU, minus the last snap that he took. So I would say it should be higher if you're having both of those guys, because I think the staff feels so good about him.
There's probably a ton of, like, if I had to imagine 90% of the weight's on the starter, because in most of these situations, that's who's going to play almost the entire year. So I don't know.
So fast at Texas Tech.
You never know. We had
never
the first
know.
season in 7 years where our quarterback actually played the full season and he wasn't even healthy the whole time. The guys that kind of surprised me, Josh Hoover being below a tier between Rocco, Sawyer Robertson, and Sam Levitt. I guess maybe I get that a little bit, but if you're going to put Rocco in the same tier as Sam Levitt and Sawyer Robertson, I don't know how you exclude Josh Hoover. That one didn't make a ton of sense to me. I think these guys, what I think of these is that all of these guys have the ability to move up a tier or two almost immediately. Like if Jalen Daniels is healthy the full season, Clayton's going to kill me for saying this, he can be a tier 1B quarterback, like without a doubt. Baron Morton,
don't worry, he won't hear you.
But you can also see like Kevin Jennings falling off a ton, or you could see Blake Horvath or Darian Mensah just not working out at Duke, or guys like this. You could see that. I think they put a lot of respect on Baron Morton's name here, though. I'm actually surprised that they had him this high.
Why is that?
The stat that they gave for him. I mean, if you really want to see it, they said, "Here's QB A. He has a 5-8 record. He has a 45.6 QBR, 58% completion percentage, 18 touchdown passes, and 14 picks. QBB has a 9-1 record, 68.7 QBR, 65% completions, 23 TDs, and 6 picks. QBA is Texas Tech's Morton versus teams outside the top 50 in his career, and QBB is Morton versus everybody else. That's the one. They gave 2 stats, one on Josh Hoover and one on Baron Morton. So they kind of ragged him a little bit, but I don't know. I think that's what you get with Baron a lot. It's kind of a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde. You see some really high level stuff. You just haven't seen him be super high level against super high level teams. And that's, we don't have to belabor this point, but that's kind of what you're looking for now. Can you see Baron do it consistently against consistently good teams? And they pointed that out. And I think that's a very fair stat to bring up.
I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I said this to y'all, and when I think it was Brennan who sent this to us. It's interesting because quarterback is such a unique position that you are the focal point. Like everything runs through you, but you also cannot be successful unless you have other successful position groups around you.
Totally.
And Baron, for his whole career at Texas Tech, because Texas Tech, I mean, really in a long time, hasn't had a serviceable offensive line, an average offensive line. I mean, we've been below average. I mean, for the past 3-4 years. I mean, that was partly due to Coach Wells not recruiting offensive linemen and leaving those completely. I mean, taking one a class or for a couple of years, or was it one? I forget what it was.
Whatever
it was just poor. It was just porous offensive line recruiting. And so I'm not trying to divert the blame off of him, but I don't know that, and not blame because I think he's been the best quarterback you've had since Pat. But I don't think you've really been able to fairly evaluate a guy because you haven't even had an average offensive line. I mean, really, like give me. I mean. I don't know how Iowa State's offensive line wasn't great last year.
I think it was worse than yours.
They were worse. Okay, well, the thing about Rocco though is Rocco is more mobile than Baron, and so that makes a big difference. But I can't fault Baron for not being
his receivers. Jalen Noel.
Yeah, he had two guys that go to the league this year.
2 picks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the best receiver we've had that Barron's played with it has to be Josh Kelly, right?
I'm trying to think if there was anybody last year that I would have said was significantly better than Josh Kelly.
I mean, Kelly was fantastic. So I'm not trying to.
I mean, I thought Kelly was good. Yeah, that's not.
Last year was the best receiver room that Barron had, which was Coy, CD, and then Josh Kelly. And so and obviously there was Taj there, so that played a difference. And then Jalen Conyers, John Carlos Miller, Mason Tharp. I mean, you have all those guys. My concern with anyone rating Barron, I mean, I guess that is respectful, but I also think that if you rate that list as you should with Will Hammond in the picture, that's a tier 2 room. I just think that I fully haven't actually seen what Barron can be. I really believe that. And obviously that's my optimism for him and the talent that he has, because he can make all the throws. He's not the most mobile guy in the world. He's mobile enough, but I think he can be even better. You just have to give him the tools around him, because he's not a mobile guy that's going to run around and make plays for himself.
And you wish Barron was just a little bit better of a runner. I think it would help so much with the way that the offense. You feel like if he just had an extra step, he would get out of so many sacks, and he would turn the 2-yard gain into the 8-yard gain, and the sack into a 5-yard. Things like that would just help so much in the margins. But that's just not been his game. Maybe he sheds a little weight and gets a little bit quicker. I thought he was decently mobile before the ankle injury and all that stuff. But yeah, I think you're right. It'll be interesting. I just think there's so much volatility with Barron. What if he gets hurt again? What if there's all of these things that could end up happening?
Look, Zyler, let me ask you this: what stat line do you need from Barron this year to take him up a level and how you view him in terms of Texas Tech quarterbacks and where they stand all time?
Yeah, truly the efficiency just needs to improve. I don't care if he throws 10 times a game. I don't care if he throws 50 times a game. I want to see the QB efficiency improve, and not just the completion percentage. I want to see the adjusted completion percentage on downfield target. His completion percentage gets juiced by all those screens that we throw. Can your average depth of target increase and your completion percentage remain the same? Can you not get so many empty calories? You think about the Washington State game, you think about the Colorado game, Baylor game, where we were getting stats when the game was kind of already out of hand. Show me that you can control a game, that you can play a full game against a good team and do that several times. Just be really efficient. I think that's what the peak Barron to me is going to be, a really efficient game manager. Not somebody that maybe goes out there and is the dominant, Shadur Sanders like performance where he throws for 4,000 plus yards, all these touchdowns, does all of these different things. I think if he has, truly like a Sam Levitt stat line last year where he throws like 20 times a game, but he's throwing for like 280, 300 every single game, that would be awesome for me. He doesn't have game. That's not what I'm looking for, but the guy that doesn't make a ton of mistakes, that can bail you out of some situations, and that allows his playmakers to make plays. I'm trying to think of like the NFL comp for me. I don't know who that is, really, because the NFL guys are so hard to comp to kind of a, mid-tier college guy. But
well, I'll say this. I mean, he didn't. I mean, the interception numbers last year were low. I mean, not double-digit interceptions, but the interceptions did come at kind of critical moments, at different points. I mean, you think at the Colorado one, Colorado 2, I think it was. Yeah, so they both came at so those things happen. But I do think I will say I'm so interested because we're obviously talking about him last year, and not only you're considering the fact that the offensive line was. Hopefully, you hope it's improved this year. I mean, it better be. Yeah. But you also have to consider you don't have your all-time leading rusher standing next to him, the security blanket, right? You don't have Taj Brooks, but you also do not have, you also don't have Josh Kelly, which Caleb Douglas is great, Quay Aiken is great, but you don't. I mean, I don't think either one of them are Josh Kelly level. They're not Josh Kelly level. Now maybe they improve and get better, and I mean, I would assume that happens, but right now they're not, and so. And even on top of that, which I would probably argue is maybe more important, is you have a brand new offense that he has not taken any reps in, any live reps in. And so it's like, how are you going to – and I think he's going to be fine. It's just what last year looked like in terms of efficiency compared to this year with the personnel changes and the coaching changes. It just leaves a lot to be desired in terms of what is this actually going to look like.
Totally. I've never been more thankful for us to have 2 warm-up games this year against FCS opponents than I am this year, just to get him some live reps,
Yeah.
to throw the ball 50 times against live players that you don't know what's coming. I think it's going to be huge for, Leftwich, for our offensive line, for our scheme, to really say, okay, let's work some of those kinks out. Let's get ready for Big 12 play. And then you get kind of the medium tier test with Oregon State before you jump right into Big 12 play. I think you go on the road to Utah. So
Yeah, I will say I think he's played enough football to where he'll and had enough mental reps at this point too, where I'm not trying to discount that he missed spring and that he's I don't know what the plan looks like for him this summer. He hasn't told us yet, but what it in terms of what it looks like with his experience and how that
yeah,
works itself out, I think I feel a lot better of him being a redshirt senior this year and
yeah,
going into this position and having played the amount of football he has versus say a redshirt sophomore, just because he knows what it's like to play under the lights. He knows
yeah.
what it feels like. And so I think it'll be fine. I will say I'm very optimistic about having those first 2 games, but that's also what I said last year. But I think this year we're a little bit more eyes wide open to what could potentially happen. I hope the team is as well.
Yeah, I think it's well said. It's going to be interesting year, a lot of different stuff going on.
Yeah.
If we had to, the other noteworthy stuff that happened this past week, Grant McCasland signs that extension. That is awesome. Good for Grant. He's going to be making probably top 3-ish money in the conference. He'll be behind Self. He'll be behind Drew. You're behind the guys that have national titles hanging up in the stadium. So, I can't ever blame them for that. But, the other really interesting note in that contract is a 60%, it's an increased buyout. It's 60% if he leaves for an in-state school. That's very clearly targeted at our friends down in Waco. Or I guess
they friends
down in College Station or Austin, if they ever come hunting for McCaslin. But yeah, man, $5 million a year. That is some impressive level money. That's some impressive money floating around for your head basketball coach. He's
it's more than your head football coach.
Yeah, which Joey, if he has a great year, is going to get a big pay raise. But yeah, you're paying your basketball coach really significant money right now. You've invested in him. Good on Kirby. Good on the staff. Good on the athletic department finding the money. And good for McCaslin. I think he's earned it. He's he's the only coach in the Big 12 that's outperformed his KenPom ranking every single season, his preseason. So what they think your team is, he's beaten that every single year without a doubt, and that's wild to think to do that over 9 to 10 years where injuries and other things happen. He's never been worse than what they thought of him in the preseason. That's really impressive to me. Now, part of that is you never start in the top 5, so there's a lot more room to move up. But
we'll see what happens this year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you get Ben Henshaw, who's the rumored ad out of the Australian Perth Academy. You'll probably be a top 15-ish team per the metrics coming in. Maybe it depends on how they evaluate foreign prospects and how that comes in, but you'll return the Big 12 Player of the Year, member of the Big 12 freshman team. You'll have Ben Henshaw coming in. You'll have Lawan Watts. You'll have Donovan Atwell. You'll have Tyree Bryan. You've got the Groves, Nolan Groves from Minnesota, our white backup point guard who's coming in. I mean, you're going to have some talent. There's going to be some expectations, and that'll be, I think people around Lubbock had expectations for Tech last year. We knew this roster was pretty well assembled, and you knew what you had coming back. There's going to be national expectations for your team this year, and that'll be
preseason top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think really, really good chance that's where you're kind of situated.
Let me say this about the extension too. I think obviously it's well deserved, and the amount of money. I mean, I don't know how to fathom that amount of money. So I'm just good for Grant, and he deserves it for what he's brought to Texas Tech. But the buyout, the 60% increase if he left for an in-state rival, is what is most interesting to me, because obviously that's protecting Texas Tech. Because I do think I've never met Grant. I don't know him. I just know he's I've heard great things about him, like we all have, because I think they're all true. I really do believe the only school he would consider leaving Texas Tech for is Baylor. And so the fact that was in the contract and he signed it tells me that he probably really believes in what's happening at Texas Tech, which I know he does, but it seems like he wouldn't have signed that if he was itching towards Waco. I think he's really happy in Lubbock. I think he's really optimistic with what he's built and the facilities he's got, the fan base he's got, the university he's got. Obviously, he's got ties to Lubbock with his wife playing soccer at Tech. I mean, and him getting a master's degree here. So it's a good place for him and his family. And I think that the fact that he signed that and was like, yeah, that's okay. Kind of shows me that maybe in his mind, maybe that chapter to go to Baylor has closed. I don't know if you disagree with that, but I think a 60% increase in the buyout, that's
I
a
think
big
it's
deal.
60% of the buyout has to be
or
paid.
six-
I don't think it's a 60%. I think
sorry,
it's
yeah, 60% of the buyout has to be. So that's still a big deal, though.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, he agreed to that. It's kind of a give and take. We're going to give you this money. We're going to need you to agree to some other stuff here. Who knows how he actually feels? There's probably 3 people in the world that know. It's him, his wife, and the Baylor athletic director who actually know what he would have done last year if that opened. But, I think it's good. We've made the investment. If Grant ever chooses to leave for a North Carolina, a Duke, a Kansas, God forbid, no hard feelings. Those are top 3 jobs in the country. You don't turn those kind of jobs down. You are on the Hall of Fame track to do that. That's the pinnacle of the college basketball coaching world. The one that would hurt would be Baylor, and that's the alma mater, and that's what I think you're trying to protect against.
We've seen that movie before, right? Like we don't. I mean, I remember saying after the national championship run, I will never be mad if Chris Beard leaves for Duke, North Carolina.
Yeah,
one of those types. Like that makes sense. No, I would have been like, I mean, that and it'd been like, yeah, it would sting. It would stink, but like at the same time, it's like, yeah, I get it. Like that's totally fine. But the fact that it was Texas and then the way it worked itself out and all this drama behind that, I don't think that Kirby and the athletic department brass want to have to deal with that again, because they know how upset the fan base was at that, and then how all that played out afterwards. So I don't if I had to say right now, do I think that will happen again? I don't think Grant ever leaves for Baylor. I think he's here for a long time, and I mean, he's in his mid-50s.
He's not a spring chicken.
No, and Grant, if you're listening, we're not trying to call you old. You're not old, but mid-50s going from Texas Tech to another school. I mean, it's a lot of work to start over. That's all I'm saying.
It is. And it's your alma mater. There's something to be said for that. But Grant seems like the other thing that I appreciate about Grant, and this has nothing to do with winning games, I appreciate that he's a family man. I appreciate that him and his wife, they've been through a lot. You JUCO coach doing that. I mean, that is a huge sacrifice. He's got the 3 kids, the ones at LCU, one's at Baylor, the other one's, I think, still in high school. Or no, Beckett's probably in junior high.
Grant's kids' names?
Well, Jet went to my high school. So I've seen him play. Great player, man. One of the best shooters in high school that I've ever seen. But I think that just fits really well with Lubbock. It's a very family-oriented community, and Grant fits that really well. Whereas Beard, he fit Tech very well too. I don't know that you'll ever have a fit like that culturally, but the way that he lived his life was just very different than a lot of people in Lubbock do. And I think the culture and the home that Lubbock really resonates with the way that Grant leads his life. And I think that's something that means nothing in the win-loss column. You can be a total butthole if you'll win me a ton of games. That I'll prefer that over anything. But if I can get this, I think it's really nice too. So,
well, we've got the best of both worlds right now, and I hope we have it for a couple decades.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think this is all been interesting coverage. It's funny how much stuff is happening. We haven't even touched on the College Sports Commission. Tennessee looking to try to get out of it. The SEC might have to expel Tennessee if they, go through with all this stuff. There's a lot of different things happening in the college football world. But more importantly, Conrad, we have Texas Tech trivia to wrap us up tonight.
Exactly.
I've got a Big 12 title question for you. I was looking through it, and I had to do my own research. It actually took me a little bit of time to do this. There are only 4 programs of the 15 programs that you have that have not won a Big 12 title, regular season or championship. And this is not, I'm not even counting Southwest. I'm not counting anything like that. And I'm excluding the cross-country teams. Do you know the 4 programs that we have in the athletic department that have never won a Big 12 title?
I know that hurts to say this, and this will change this year, but it's football. Obviously it's football. And then I think our golf program has been very good. Good. Coach Sands has done a fantastic job with it. I don't think they've ever won a Big 12 title.
Okay. Good guess.
And then I don't know that our women's team has ever done anything either, but I don't know who the 4th one is.
Okay. You were actually correct. Women's golf has never won. Men's golf has actually never won. They've gotten really close. Football's never won. The only other team that has not won a Big 12 title is women's volleyball. Everybody else has done it. Men's tennis, women's basketball actually did it in 2000. Every other team has won a share or a Big 12 tournament at some point, except those 4 programs. So,
okay.
Interesting stuff. Good time to be a Texas Tech Red Raider.
Let's flip that. and think about how we've had so many other programs that have won Big 12 titles.
Absolutely, man. Your track
So,
team dominates.
yeah.
Your, I mean, you found a lot of really neat
Yeah.
to win in a lot of different sports. So, hats off to all those departments. Soccer, and they've been a mainstay on the national scene for a long time. Good stuff happening on the Texas Tech athletics front. Very few programs under your banner have not won a Big 12 title, and that's something to be commended.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're listening this far and you're not subscribed to the show yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. It helps the show grow, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. Looking forward to football season already, having fun in the off season though as well. So be on the lookout for more episodes. We should be back to our regular twice a week programming starting next week. We've had a busy couple weeks here on the Broadway Shuffle, but excited to get back into the saddle a little bit and get back into that rhythm. So for Zyler, my name is Conrad, and we'll see you next time. Wreck 'em.
Thanks, Conrad.